And I'm back. Sorry about that. My webcam has a mind of its own and decides to stop recording just whenever it feels like it. I think I left off with my preference of Cape, but I've rambled about that long enough, so let's move on. The rest of him so far that I can tell is pretty great. Certainly worth the money. Again, I'm exploring this as you are, so well, we'll find out. I guess I'll go kind of head to toe. He does have the, instead of swappable heads, he comes with, which Thor and Captain America had, he comes with just the one face, but he does still have the interchangeable eyes. He can look left, he can look right, and he can look straight forward. One thing I do like about the Figma Thor, besides his cloth cape, is, I mean, if you're going to add something wonky, at least make it useful. He's got articulated hair that you can kind of lift up so that you can get his head to look up. This Thor looks straight ahead. He has no upward movement. You can, his neck is articulated to where you can push it back a little bit and just barely tilt his head kind of up. But it's certainly not an upward looking motion. He pretty much either looks straight ahead or he looks down real well. He can tilt his head just a little bit, so his hair gets in the way. I would have an issue with that if the hair wasn't done so well. I think the hair looks pretty great. Looks just like it did in the movie, I think. So, you know, you got to give and take a little bit. So that's fine with me. Although, again, mentioned in other reviews, and this does make a lot of sense, one of his other accessories is a sculpted hand and Mjolnir, so that he looks as if he is flinging it through the air with him in pursuit, thus flying, yet you can't get him in a flying pose because he doesn't look up. So that's just simple kind of oversight, I guess, if you will. Undersight, that's not even a word, but I'm going with it. Someone just didn't think twice before implementing that. But things happen, I guess. Moving down, he's got this nice deep red, nice soft plastic cape or rubber. I don't know if that's soft plastic or rubber, one of the two, which again unfortunately doesn't go down. It'd be nice if it did, but it doesn't. But sculpt and paint work on that little bit is at least nice. The articulation for his arms and shoulders is pretty decent. He does have, instead of a bicep swivel, he's got an upper arm swivel, but it's at this upper joint, so you've got to kind of hold that in place while you twist it, but his arm will twist around that joint ever so slightly, so he does get a little movement there. But kind of in lieu of that, he has these butterfly joints, which are fantastic. They work really well, give him a great range of motion, so that I'm very happy about. The paint in the sculpt for his arms is okay. I wouldn't have minded seeing a little more sculpt in there, and it's just kind of there's really not a lot going on. There's hardly any skin tone textures or skin tone variations. There's no textures from, well, I guess you can have textures in paint, from paint or from articulation. It's kind of bland. So I wouldn't have minded to see something a little more care and love given to his arms. Since he is kind of bare armed, that's almost a focal point. You've got his costume and his bare skin. It's the only two things you have to look at. And yet they're kind of bland. But his costume has tons of detail. Not a lot of paint work. It's just kind of molded colored plastics. Some of these plastics might be painted, but they're very dull. I mean, there's no shading, so that's kind of a disappointment. Seeing as how they did so much on the Hulk, he's got just great sculpt and lots of neat little details for the paint and the veins and the musculature. That's hard to say. The detail in his muscles is all extremely nice. I mean, perfect. Yet they didn't quite extend that down to Thor or Captain America. I mean, for that matter, he doesn't. I guess I didn't notice it last time. Sure, it's all, if that's even painted. I can't tell if that's painted or just the color of the plastic, but it's nicely painted. There's just no detail of paint. There's no life. They're just flat colors. But again, the application of paint itself is done nicely, professionally. There's no bleeding anywhere. Everything's painted where it should be and kind of how it should be. So that's all nice. There's at least they did that pretty well. Again, he's got a lot of nice colors in his costume. I think it's probably movie accurate. I don't remember. Moving on down from his arms, again, you've got the hinge in there, swings out, rotates around, the butterfly joint so he can bring his arm across, which is very nice. Double hinged for the elbow. Again, that little internal mechanism they used that kind of hides the joint, which is nice. His gauntlets rotate at the mid